Before we haul ourselves across the Mississippi River with the wagon trains, trappers, and explorers onto the plains and mountains of the great west of North America, I consider a few more loose ends of the fabric that was the eastern United States after the War of Independence. Most of Book 1 did not much reference the Spanish march across parts of North America. Other United States adversaries along the east coast of the Atlantic Ocean morphed from Native American hit-and-runs to French and British military schemes to social factional disputes on the frontier to outright wars. The French eventually assimilated or melted west and north to Canada. The British stubbornly held on to the frontier forts, at least until their defeats in the War of 1812. Indians were the last to depart in large numbers from lands east of the Mississippi, some voluntarily following the game and the forest sustenance displaced by settler intrusions, and many others forced by military and flawed or fraudulent treaty persuasion. The Spaniards fought on, however, from another geographical angle, but without much enthusiasm. Their domain initially was limited to the climate-stressed southern swamps and marshes that dot much of today's Florida, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, and Louisiana's Mississippi Delta. Spanish administrators and priests also ranged widely for a while across other climate-challenged plains and southwestern deserts west of the Mississippi to the Pacific Ocean coast of California. After Tennesseans, some in the proposed Free Republic of Franklin in 1784, and the Kentuckians toyed with the ideas of separation from the new Revolutionary Union, it was Texas that fought the Mexicans and raised its own Lone Star flag. The República de Tejas was sovereign unto itself from March 1836 to February 1846. The tangle of brush, water, and mud in the Gulf states kept out settlers with designs on permanent habitation in the southeastern North America. Even the political and military intentions of the Spaniards relative to the unfolding dramas up north were muddled and vague in nature. Essentially, at least until the Louisiana Purchase from France in 1803, Spanish and French interests collided in and around New Orleans, the key port for trade from the interior hunting and trapping grounds along the Mississippi River. The history of the Floridas, East Florida and West Florida, encompassed foreign intrigues and ownership, disputes over land including all of present-day Florida, parts of Georgia, Alabama and Mississippi, and basically the port of New Orleans and its feeder river, the Mississippi. New Orleans, Louisiana, changed hands back and forth between Spain and France before Tom Jefferson finally got a hold of the place. Napoleon, on the European continent, needed money and so decided to sell the mosquitoes at an opportune time for the swelling American frontier. The powers in Washington were worried about access to the Gulf of Mexico, especially given the frontier restlessness and distrust of the centralized authorities in the East. Some agitators, subtle and not so subtle, especially in Tennessee and Kentucky and along the Ohio River, contemplated alliances with Spain to protect their land rights and commercial access to the Mississippi's outlet. As recounted previously, the native populations of the Southeast were widely dispersed. Along the coasts, Catholicism made civilized inroads, although adherence to the European version of the faith was usually pro forma rather than vigorous. The Creek Wars and Seminole Wars that eventually erupted were relatively confined and actually fanned by the Americans, not the Spanish. The ensuing Trail of Tears of the Cherokee and others dispersed the innocent and troublemakers alike across the Gulf region and in larger numbers all the way to Oklahoma and the Great Plains. A Republic of West Florida existed for a time until claimed eventually as part of the Louisiana Purchase deal. The Spanish in East Florida had difficulty restraining incursions from American military posted in Georgia who were chasing Seminoles, the First Seminole War, and escaped slaves. It just became too much for the administrators in Madrid. Florida didn't become a territory of the U.S. until 1822, pursuant to a fragile treaty with Spain 3 years before, and a renewed cession confirmed later with Mexico. The Adams-Onis Treaty of 1819 ceded the peninsula and established the U.S. border with Mexico, but Florida wasn't formally accepted into the Union until 1843.